because I was one of those guys that anything I did was hardcore, anything I did was extreme. And I think the best thing I did was I made that clear, conscious decision that I was going to get out and do something different.
What did you have in mind? What did you think you were going to be able to do when you transitioned out? Did you have this vision to be in the surveillance industry, or how'd you figure that out?
No, for me, man, I was taking some college classes at night when I was in, and I got all my Microsoft certifications and did all the stuff that IT would typically do. And if you would have asked me in Iraq where I would have been, I would have told you that I would have been a network engineer, which I did become later in life. But when I got out of the Marine Corps, but if you would have asked me if I would have been into surveillance or security, I would have said, no way.
So, I think what's interesting about your story is it kind of goes back. My story started, really, my life started when that second plane, SOBs, hit the tower, changed the course of my life and where I am today in DC. Your sort of mission, if you will, changed a little bit during the Boston bombing. Take us through what your impetus was to launch your company based on those two guys. I'll leave it at that. It's a public show. Those two guys that terrorized Boston for a couple of days. What was it that lit your fire?
Yeah, for me, man, I have to go back to September 11th, 2001 as well. I was literally in the Chow Hall in Camp Pendleton out in California. And that was the first switch that got flipped in me, because I knew that we were on a hunt for a dude that we'd be looking for a little while until we found him. But the second switch in me got flipped on the day of the Boston Marathon bombing on April 15, 2015. Honestly, man, I felt committed to finding a way to have an autonomous surveillance platform, because basically what had happened was, instead of crashing planes into the World Trade Towers, these guys literally came in and punched us in the face and walked away, bombs going off, maiming innocent Americans that weren't even part of the fight. And I think for me, man, like all people, all Americans and all people throughout the world, terrorists we know are cowards, because they fight in a way that they go after innocent people and not combatants. So that was the second switch that got flipped in me. And I knew after that I had to make a difference. I had to create a product that would be totally autonomous with redundancy baked in, being able to, encumber a terrorist attack and be able to move, basically push through that terrorist attack.
Yeah, I think another challenge that happened, and one of the sort of lessons learned that came out of that between law enforcement and military, would be the dependency that the collective we, that I was in government at the time, had on private sector cameras, right? Whether it was a little cyber cafe, whether it was a little coffee shop. I mean, God bless the cops, running around trying to figure out where the hell these guys came from and what they were carrying and who they were. But they relied a lot, maybe too much, on the private sector. Yeah. Did that help shape kind of the way that you viewed having an autonomous surveillance capability that would help, whether it was with law enforcement or military?
Absolutely, Keith. I think we put too much dependency on the retail shops, the coffee shops, the mom and pop shops about where did this incident occur from. They're trying to put together all the pieces of the puzzle. A couple of years ago, I gave a talk at the FBI National Academy. The investigators of that Boston Marathon bombing had acquired over 2 terabytes of video data that they had to sift through, of retail shops, cell phones, tablets, smartphones, smart devices. And it took them several days before they could start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And that was one of the problems that I saw. And the problem that I wanted to solve was we needed our own platform to be able to sift through. If I had my own surveillance platform during the Boston Marathon bombing, I would have honestly just needed to go through my own video, basically making our investigation a lot more efficient and finding and solving problems and answers quickly, instead of taking several days to go through everyone's video from their devices of different kind of variations of video.
Right. And if you think about it, right, if we put this in context of Blood and Treasure, there was a cop that got caught up in a shootout there that maybe that wouldn't have happened if, we would have found these SOBs a little bit faster than what we did. So, take us through how your capability maybe is a little bit newer and different in the market than what's traditionally out there, and then put it as a backdrop say I'm a Border Patrol agent. I'm between San Ysidro and Las Cruces, a whole lot of nothing along that border other than a few spots like Nogales. How does your technology work?
So our technology works in many ways. The biggest facet of our SentryPODs, one of the biggest advantages to our SentryPODs, is the fact that it's a totally autonomous solution. It's designed to be disconnected from any primary means of connectivity, whether it be wireless, Ethernet, or cellular. Okay. One of the biggest advantages of the SentryPODs is the fact that I designed them to encumber a terrorist attack. In other words, if we lose primary AC power, they fail over to battery by design. And the SentryPODs can carry us through 2 days, over 2 days of battery power before they need to be basically either the batteries replaced, which can happen without losing power, or we have to have an AC presence or even solar. We have solar SentryPODs as well, but they're totally autonomous and totally disconnected from any primary means, and they fail over. Both power and network fail over, which gives them a lot of capabilities.
You know, Brent, can they handle, 110 degrees for months at a time? It's 110 degrees. It's hot in the shade. How does that work out in the middle of nowhere?
So we're probably good in temperatures in plus 150 degrees. SentryPODs are designed to be in totally extreme conditions and environments. Negative 32 degrees below zero, not an issue at all. 150 degrees, not an issue at all.
So in the scope, if you think about the life cycle of Border Patrol, right, what they're sort of looking at here, there's a detection component, there's a prevention component. And, you probably make the case that it really takes a mix of wall technology and people. And for those folks that may not be aware, back in 2006, the Secure Border Initiative was lit up and a lot of funding went to it. And some wall was built, a lot of technology was used. And for those of us that were there were some technology advancements that weren't around 10 years ago.
That's
and
right.
So we were picking up sometimes jackrabbits where we should have been picking up 6 foot tall individuals, and we're picking up 6 foot tall individuals, and we're picking up tumbleweeds. And so the program was killed in 11. So you hear a lot of politics today, and half the sort of room would say, well, technology can do it all. I guess of the humble opinion that a nice mix of that. How does your capability kind of put a force multiplier on our foot power in Jeeps and SUVs that are out in the desert, in addition to, say, the wall? How would that work?
That's a great question, Keith. The bottom line is our SentryPODs are designed to be connected to within 3 minutes. So they're very autonomous. And the biggest play of SentryPODs are the fact that they make our foot power more exponential. If I were to ask you what you had for lunch a week ago, you may not remember. With SentryPODs, it's a virtual protection of a virtual barrier of protection, if you will. So they're designed to be connected to, but also they archive and record the video of something that had occurred. We know that there are tunnels on the wall. We know that they're throwing ladders over the wall. Okay. Yeah. Listen, without getting political, I'm just going to say you have to have multiple layers of protection at our borders. You have to have a physical barrier, but you have to back that up. Our investment of $5 billion that they were seeking for funding, you have to back that up with technology. And technology is always going to trump a physical barrier. But a physical barrier is necessary. It really is. I mean, just like a dude standing at a gate, a guy standing there is absolutely necessary because of the unanimous things that go on. But backing that up with virtual protection is critical because, let's face it, if I want to know where's my breach point at, I can disconnect the SentryPODs off the wall, move it 2 miles down the road while it's still connected, drive it down in the back of a truck, put it up, and then be able to detect and deter or even prevent that breach.
Yep. Think about it. Say I'm a Border Patrol agent, right? And I am 30 miles east of Nogales. And for nobody that's ever been to Nogales, 30 miles east of Nogales kind of sucks, right? There is literally nothing going on, right? Yeah. So if you're a Border Patrol agent and you're with a group of guys and you got to control what's happening up and down there, the power to be able to have a mobile solution, to be able to move the asset because you're getting intel for whatever reason, however you get the intel, or the drones are up in the air and they're letting you know that there's a different sort of change in pattern of bad guys coming across the border, you can move the asset. They don't know that you've moved the asset. And now you've got actionable intelligence available, if you will, 24/7 in a new spot where 2 weeks ago, maybe it wasn't as vulnerable as what it is today that they were exploiting.
That's right. That's right.
So,
And go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, the biggest thing about the SentryPODs are, Marines love acronyms, and POD is an acronym for Protective Overt Deployable Surveillance.
Yeah.
We take away the pain point of disconnecting the dependency of a wire or some method of connecting to the internet. We pre-configure our SentryPODs, and by and large, man, when we take away that dependency, it's all about speed and mobility. We win fights because we're faster, we're more mobile, and we're more capable. And speed and mobility is what it's all about.
And that challenge of being on if you will, a disconnected network, right? So there's a lot of requirements down there on the border in the middle of nowhere. I'm not talking San Ysidro where you've got some firepower, for lack of a better term. I'm talking in the middle of nowhere where, power can be constrained. You got really tough conditions, environmentally. And then, getting connectivity is a bit of a challenge. So being able to add some tech that would be able to out there. And again, what are the 3-4 ways that you guys can connect to the network to get information back to a command center?
So there's multiple ways. We're going to connect through Ethernet, doing Ethernet handoff right to our SentryPODs enclosure, which is IP68 rated. We're going to connect to a wireless network securely using basically digital security certificates to encrypt the data traffic. So for all you tech gurus out there and you hackers out there, that's critical. And then,
so I think real quick, Brett, I think the correct way to say it for hackers is "suck it, hackers. You're not getting in." Is that the correct way to say it?
That's the right way to say it.
Take that, narcos.
Yeah. But and also cellular. I mean, let's face it. You're not always going to have a cable to connect to, and you're not always going to have a secure wireless network to connect to. So, bottom line is either we're connecting to Fleet Satcom, which is out in space through satellite, or we're going to connect to a regular connection. Yeah. Absolutely. And you've got to be very flexible in your deployment strategy, or you're going to lose. And so elasticity is one of our biggest key advantages with SentryPODs. It gives us a lot of flexibility and a lot of elasticity.
So let me ask you this. So what's sort of the range, right? What's the field of vision for one of these assets? So say we're 30 miles east of Nogales again. What's my field of view?
So the field of view for us right now, we have a SentryPODs at the Axis Experience Center in Washington, D.C., and it overlooks the Washington Monument, the Capitol Building. The Capitol Building, the National Capitol Building, is about 3.2 miles away, and we can zoom in with one of the Q-Series SentryPODs, 6155s, an Axis camera. We can zoom into the Capitol Building and see the Capitol Building from about 3 miles away.
So from 3 miles away, so how close is the resolution on a 3 miles away? Can you get a sense of, could that be used for biometrics, right? To get a sense of, is this just a illegal immigrant coming in, or is this a bad guy?
And that's one of the biggest advantages of the SentryPODs. There's so many awesome advantages of the SentryPODs. One of the biggest ones are the fact that it's definitive video. Listen, if I'm looking at a dude and I see he's got a red jacket, I'm going to be able to see definitive detail on him to give a very defined description of the guy. Not the 7-Eleven quality, and I'm not trying to slam 7-Eleven, but I'm going to slam them for a minute. But the 7-Eleven quality that we're used to, most of the time on these, these real poor, dilapidated cameras, I can't even tell what ethnicity these dudes are. So at least with our SentryPODs, you're looking at very definitive, high-definition video.
So it is HD video.
It is all high-definition video, all vandal-resistant, all infrared capable.
That's great because, I mean, look, let's face it, right? If you're in law enforcement, like what I was over, on the Homeland Security side or on the military side, depending upon where the politics of this goes, you're going to want to know, when I send a Border Patrol agent or a group of agents out to intercept 20 people, who are they, right? I mean, they're always a bit of a risk, but how big of a threat are they? And if you've got the ability to take those images, get some biometrics on them, and get a sense of how bad are these cats, that helps prepare who's going to go meet them out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, I won't get into the deep level or the grassroots level technology capabilities of our SentryPODs for the Department of Defense versions. But I will say that there's facial recognition capabilities at the edge. But that's the biggest advantage of our SentryPODs, the fact that it brings all of your technologies right to the edge, man. Your recording capabilities, your management capabilities. Listen, if we lose primary AC power, our SentryPODs pumps out an email to intended recipients, letting them know I have power and I have so many hours to point of failure, which tells me now I'm making my foot power more exponential on multiple levels, because now I know I don't have to send Keith to go replace batteries for another 47 hours.
Yep.
So I'm going to go.
And I think that's a key point that you're bringing up there is, look, the guys and gals, God bless them, that are on the border, that is hard work. I can't even describe to people who have really, that maybe live in Kansas or New York City, what it's really like down there on the border, man. It's hard work. And if you're spending a lot of time maintaining technology, right, you're going to go change a light bulb. You're not doing your job, which is trying to, catch folks coming across that maybe shouldn't be doing it, right? So the ability to reduce the maintenance, I think that's a nice, like if you had 5 minutes with a Border Patrol agent and you're sitting there over maybe a Boilermaker, right? A nice Coors Light and a shot of tequila, you pop it in, you're BSing, you're talking. What would you tell them? I mean, how does this help their job?
I love these guys, man. I mean, they're all doing their job, just like law enforcement agents are, just like the military are. I've been on many counter-drug operations. I've been on many joint task force operations in regard to border security on the southern border. A lot of bad stuff that happens down there. But I think the biggest thing for me, the thing that I would say to them would be, the fact that you're trying to protect the border, and so many bad things go on down there. Listen, we're America, and people are saying, well, the illegals are coming across, but they're good people. I get it. Everybody gets it, all right? Yep. Not everyone who comes across that border is some tyrant, but I would just say this: there are criminals who come across that will cut your throat in 2 seconds. And so for that, with the whole border initiative and the things that they're talking about, the fact is America, listen, there's ways to help Mexico and all these outlying areas and all these outlying countries that want to come through and get into America. It's called humanitarian operations. It's called flying a helo over their grounds and dropping food and water and aid to them. We have aid workers that go in. We have missionary people that go in from churches to help people. It's called humanitarian operations, but we don't need them coming over our border and basically squandering all of our health care and all of our, assets that we currently have and the things that we work for. Man, we love everybody. America, I think, has proven it throughout the years that we love everybody. But if we're going to help them, we can help them in different ways, and it's called humanitarian operations. You fly over and you drop assets on the ground. Simple as that.
It's where you're dropping the assets, right? So which side are you dropping the assets on, right? More than happy to help folks, but if you're going to come in the country, look, don't want to make it too much of a political sort of discussion, but I think we're of like mind that, look, there's a better way to be effective down on the border, and you can't just do it with people because you'll never have enough. You can't just do it with a wall because there are certainly areas that aren't going to be able to support a wall, and you can't do it just with tech. But I think a nice mix. Basically, if you were to do the SBI initiative in 2019 with technologies like yours, you could get the results that we were trying to do back in 2006. Tech just wasn't there.
That's right. That's right. And when you're able to take the SentryPODs off the wall, disconnect them from the wall completely, throw it on the floor of a helo, fly the SentryPODs over, and then drop it on the ground and still have live surveillance streaming at all times. I mean, bottom line, man, it's all about speed and mobility, and the one fastest to the race usually wins, man.
I have a very simple model I've lived by my whole life. The first one to get to the whiteboard with the best idea wins. Period. The end. I don't care who you are. I don't care what rank you're. I don't care where you sit in this world. Best idea always wins. And quite frankly, America was founded on that, right? Right. That's the better mousetrap model.
That's right. That's right.
And it certainly sounds like you've got something to help solve that. So what's coming up over the horizon? Are you talking to some folks in the government? What's new on the tech front that you're building out? What's next?
We're excited, man, because honestly, Keith, we've solved the problem across the board for many, many vertical markets. We're talking about military. We're talking about heavy construction. We're talking about government, the DOD sector, Department of Homeland Security. We're talking to oil and gas, these oil and gas fields where they have totally disconnected and autonomous remote work sites. And we're able to put SentryPODs on and give them access to video, recorded video within 3 minutes. We're excited. We're doing a lot. We've literally ripped the lid off of the surveillance industry. And I think for all of us, we're excited because it's a mega surveillance disruptor. We've literally disrupted the surveillance industry.
That's pretty cool, right? So if you think about the disruption industry, right? The computers came along and that changed how, manually we were at work. And you're at the point now around autonomous surveillance. We need it, right? And to your point, like on the oil and gas companies, if you're on an oil rig or if you're on an oil location out in the middle of Texas, if you don't have near real-time information about what the hell is going on, situational awareness,
that's right.
Not only is it going to be lives for an oil and gas company, it could be millions of dollars. I mean, hell, look what happened in Deepwater Horizon, right? Which we, helped put the cork on, but we sat there and watched that for what was it, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks,
that's
just
right.
pouring stuff out. If you don't have real-time situational awareness, and I think that's what you can give to the Border Patrol. So, calling out to my old homeboys over there at CBP, let's get some conversations going and just run some pilots, right? I mean, you could set up a pilot for probably next to nothing. Grand scheme of government.
Yeah, man. And it's funny you say that, man, because we're always a big proponent of, listen, if you knock and they don't answer, you kick the door through.
Yep.
We're literally, if it's what it takes, if I know they had the big GoFundMe page for the wall going on, the guy's trying to raise millions of dollars, and kudos to him. My method is simpler than that. I'm not trying to go raise money. I'm going to go throw the SentryPODs up on the wall to prove to these guys how it's going to make their foot power more exponential, saving taxpayers billions of dollars, literally, because I could line that entire southern border with SentryPODs for about $500 million, literally $500 million. And again, although we know we need that physical barrier, we're still going to be able to back it up with technology for a fraction of the cost.
Well, look, 100% of the people involved in this issue agree technology is part of the solution. And if you're telling me we can knock out most of the border from at least from the detection side to get some intelligence back to the command centers for $500,000, there's a very technical term I want to use. That's freaking mouse nuts, right? What are we doing in a budget of $4 trillion in the United States government? What's $500 billion or $500 million? Not even trillion, $500 million to go out and line it up, and then you take that, put another 4,000 or 5,000 Border Patrol folks on the wall, and then put a wall up. This isn't rocket science, right? We're freaking Americans. We put a man on the moon 50 years ago. This ain't hard.
That's right. And with that flexibility of the SentryPODs, man, listen, they can disconnect them from the wall and go use them on another sector of the border.
Sure. The fact that they are flexible and you can move those suckers around anywhere, to me, that in and of itself is a powerful tool, because let's face it, right? If you've been involved in this kind of work, there are people on the other side that are, if you will, sentries, to use your term. They're sentries, right? They're kind of checking out what we're doing on our side, right? There's an offense and defense to every sort of mechanism. And it'd be nice for us to have the flexibility to go, oh, okay, you're putting your sentries here, and we didn't know that 2 weeks ago. Well, we'll react to that.
That's right. Absolutely. And, in our design, our intrinsic design of our SentryPODs, Keith, are the fact that we want to be able to deploy these SentryPODs within 3 minutes. Our fast mounting systems, again, another Marine acronym, RIK, R-I-K, rapid installation kits. If it takes you more than 3 minutes to install a SentryPOD, you were taking a 2-minute coffee break. They're designed to be installed within 3 minutes, and it's very Barney style, man. When you get your SentryPODs, you have your fast mounting system, you have your hardened case that travels with it, and you have your SentryPODs, and it's all inclusive, and it's a totally complete turnkey solution.
I sit here and I listen to this. I'm almost like, it's almost too easy to help reduce some of the problems down there on the border. And it shouldn't be this hard, right? Because, not a lot of money, just hell, take a little sector, right? Take out by Ajo in Arizona, or 40 miles west of El Paso, set up shop, pick a 10-mile sort of area and throw them up, and then let it run for 2 months.
That's right. I got a good friend of mine, Christian Connors, that runs a company, shooter detection systems. We've talked about this many times. Christian brought up some points, and we said, for municipalities, we have an active shooter situation. The SentryPODs then protects that perimeter, so we can lock down that entire area. so we can observe who goes in and out of that area. Real simple, man. Law enforcement during an active shooter scenario, they're hyper focused on that active shooter and the scenario right around them. But at least SentryPODS gives us the exponential foot power, and it allows us to be able to observe what's going on back in headquarters. Because as I said, the Department of Homeland Security, when I met with them a couple of years ago at this whole Black Lives Matter movement, it was a very important time in our lives, and it was really critical, and it was very sensitive. The fact that they had seasoned Department of Homeland Security officers on the deck among Molotov cocktails, among mass mayhem, we said, guys, what are you doing? Deploy the SentryPODS, make yourself more dynamic, make your foot power more exponential, so that you're not putting seasoned officers out there in the midst of mayhem. Because listen, when something goes south, I want my officers to be able to respond to that back from headquarters. So again, it's a dynamic solution.
Well, I tell you what, we'll certainly do whatever we can on Got Your 6DV to help get the word out. This show and others are part of that, and certainly happy to share what we're doing here with some of the buds back at the old ranch, as they say, and help get the word out. Because to me, a simple pilot, throw a couple $1 million at this. Let's look at it for a couple of months, get the results, and look, it's simple. Rinse, lather, repeat. If it works, add a little bit more. Right? This ain't hard.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, it's funny, right? You get a Harvard scientist involved in something like this, they'll write a document this thick, and 20 years later, there'll be a document that thick. You get a Marine, he's like, look, it's freaking built. Let's go. Let's pilot. And I appreciate the breath of fresh air, which is see a problem, solve the problem. Next.
I like it, man. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to get you out of here on this one, Brent. Do this every time on the show. We have a segment called The Big Idea. Very simple. It's basically you got the con for the day. And if you could fix a challenge in the community, whether it's active duty, military families, veterans, military spouses, whatever, if you could fix a problem in the community, what would your big idea be?
My big idea would probably be fostering around active duty personnel, military personnel, man, trying to fix the healthcare issue with TRICARE, man. We get that, you can get TRICARE as you retire from the military, even if you're not retired from the military, just doing your tour of duty and getting out. I think it needs to be easier. And I think that we should have some kind of unified healthcare system for veterans. So when they exit the military, they're not dealing with physical ailments from, being injured in the military. Ball players, they get millions and millions of dollars of health care and coverage for them, their families. But military get out, they don't get that same kind of coverage. And I think they need to have a unified healthcare platform that's segue from our public healthcare system. That's
I love that idea. And I kind of like the direction that they're going, trying to figure out a better way to move and enhance the electronic health records coming in from DOD and VA.
That's right. Put
those assets on the phone. And I think the simplest model, if they just flip the business model, when I was at Homeland, we had a concept called the person-centric model, move from a forms culture to a person-centric culture. And all that basically mean, nerd crap aside, was put the focus on the individual, and the individual should own their records. And whether they're going into a VA up in Albany or they're going into a private sector hospital in the next Kansas, their assets are right there on their phone, and they say who gets access to those records. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd have to agree with that.
Well, brother, how do people get more information on SentryPODS? Is it just SentryPODS.com?
Yeah, man. And so people can go to SentryPODS.com, look at our website, look at our newscast that we've done, look at our YouTube channel. You can find us on LinkedIn, obviously Facebook, all the social media sites.
Well, we'll make sure, again, to help get the word out. I believe in what you guys are doing. I think the government doesn't have to buy a $500 hammer for a $10 hammer problem, right? And I think you've got the right approach to solve this that's good for the taxpayers and, more importantly, good for the greatest country that's ever been conceived by mankind.
That's right, man. And I listen, in closing, I'd have to say this. We need to focus and we need to pay more attention to the Border Patrol agents that are trying to give everyone, the right kind of guidance in this problem, this epidemic that we're dealing. But we also have to lean a lot more heavily on our law enforcement officers and our military dudes, because there's nobody that's more passionate about protecting people than our law enforcement, our military, and our Border Patrol agents.
Right on, brother. I tell you, I appreciate what you're doing, and wherever we can help get the word out, we will. We'll certainly be sharing this out across Al Gore's amazing internet, so other folks that maybe didn't watch it live can catch it later. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to appreciate, I thank you for your service and what you're doing with SentryPODS. It sounds pretty cool. We sure as hell didn't have anything like this 10 years ago when I was at Homeland.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It means a lot.
All right, folks, stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Tomorrow, check it out. Jen Pelcher built a company, sold a company, and now she's the CEO of Patriotic Boot Camp. If you haven't learned about it, our show is the fusion of patriotism and capitalism. They're freaking doing patriotism and capitalism, helping vets with like an accelerator program to help get them surrounded with the right people to be successful. Check that out tomorrow at 10:10. If you're in the East Coast, it's going to snow like hell. So sit around, have a cocktail, and watch us. That's right. I said 10:10, and you can have a drink because you're not working. Everybody enjoy. We'll see you next time. Brent, thanks, brother.
Thanks, buddy.